just saw that flyby by Aishwarya of the Manhattan skyline, and particularly the United Nations building, where the Prime Minister will lead around 80 plus countries, 4,000 people there in yoga. We have Abhishek Kapoor also joining us. Abhishek, this is going to be a very enriching visit. It is very abundantly clear whether it's soft power and yoga or a paradigm shift in defense ties with GE engines and Predator drones. Is this visit by the Prime Minister going to redefine how we view India-America ties?
Not just how we view India-America ties, Ankit, the world is going to get their views, their understanding really redefined with what's really going to pan out. It's not just about optics, it's both substantive and substantial. Whatever is going to happen with the next 3 days, it's almost like India's Nixon moment. The reason why I say this, when Richard Nixon traveled to Beijing in 1979, in that period, it led to a sort of a tectonic shift in the manner in which the Chinese were seen by the rest of the world, the manner in which the Chinese got accepted by the rest of the world and subsequently became the shop floor of the world, the benefits of which, the dividend of which they have reaped till now. In fact, they have reached a level where they have actually become a strategic threat to the United States and the West. So that's something which is not going to happen with India. We are a democracy, and that's the coming together or commonality of interests. As democracies, there has been an appreciation of India in the United States for 2 decades and more. But then now there is this more meaty aspect of the relationship, which is that as an economy also at $3.75 trillion, we have something to offer. India's trade with the US stands at about $180, $190 billion. Remember, when Obama had come, for example, in 2014, 2015, it was sort of just touching $100 billion. So it's sort of doubled in that period. And the future promises more. And there are already targets being set to take it to $500 billion, which is $500 billion over the next 5 years. And that's going to be very significant play insofar as India-US dynamics go. So I think what we are going to see over the next 2-3 days is that India and the United States are going to reset and take the relationship into a new trajectory, into a new orbit, the groundwork for which has been happening for a while, be it the joint launch of the initiative on critical and emerging technologies, for example, in January, when our National Security Advisor Ajit Doval had traveled to Washington, D.C., and then again the US NSA was there just last week to take it to the next level and to finalize the details, be it the defense aspect. Remember, in 2014, when Prime Minister Modi came to power, the defense relationship was limited to some military exercises here and there, a couple of military platforms, and now you have the Chinooks, you have the Apaches, you have the Predator drones already there, P-8I Orions, and the talk of GE engine. With the talk of GE engine, the possibility of manufacturing of American technology, that was something about which Prime Minister had mentioned in the US Congress, the hesitations of history. It seems from that time, when he mentioned in the joint session of the US Congress in 2016 about the hesitations of history, to the time now when, before landing in Washington, D.C., in an interview to the Wall Street Journal, Prime Minister has said that the kind of trust that exists between the two leaderships is unprecedented. And that's something which has changed, I think, over the last 8 years, 10 years. And that's going to be reflected in Washington, D.C., in New York, and the world is going to watch. So if you look at Prime Minister's engagements, if I could give the names that we have come to know, Ankit, that gives you an idea of the kind of engagement that's happening between India and the United States, not just at the government-to-government level, but even the private sector. So if you look at Elon Musk, richest man in the world, the owner of Tesla and Twitter now, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I believe he is an astrophysicist, a scientist. Paul Romer, he is a senior vice president of the World Bank. Nicholas Nassim Taleb, essayist, market watcher, famous for its the Black Swan moment essay. And then you have Ray Dalio, again from the markets, and India bull, and among others, many others. So Jeff Smith, he is a strategic affairs thinker And so the list is long. It goes into about 24 names. And remember, Prime Minister, after a 15-hour flight, lands in New York and hits the ground running. He has all these meetings lined up. If you look at the timeline, he lands at about 11 p.m. India time tonight, and then immediately gets into these meetings, more than a dozen of them, while in New York. And then next day he does that International Yoga Day about which you were talking, Ankit, the soft power projection of India, which has been happening in a way for the last 8 years. This is the 8th edition of the International Yoga Day. This is just that Prime Minister would be there at the UN headquarters, accompanied by the UN Secretary General and the who's who of international diplomacy from the UN. I am told about 185 nations and their representatives are going to be participating. It's a big event that's taking place, and sort of helps out, makes everyone understand where India really stands vis-a-vis soft power, vis-a-vis hard power, because for all that time that those pictures are beamed around the world, everyone would be watching India's soft power. And then he flies to Washington, D.C., and then the big one. Some of the pictures that are coming in really give you a sense of the excitement and expectation that's building up both in New York and Washington, D.C. It's going to be a big visit, Ankit. And we are, of course, going to get for our viewers the minutest detail of what's really happening there when Prime Minister and his entire entourage, the high-level delegation that's traveling with him, get into the nitty-gritties.